So I have to ask, Dr. King, what's the story with the clock there?
Clock is marked at every 12 minutes. That's how often a woman will die of breast cancer in this country.
King, you believe that there may be a genetic link to some breast cancers?
I do.
Even though virtually no one else believes this to be true?
That's correct.
That's my big sister Joan and I, and we didn't know what trouble we were in.
I found a lump in my breast. I'm really scared that it's in her family. That's not true. First your mother, now poor Joan.
I know your family history. That doesn't mean that you're going to get cancer.
Your biopsy shows that you have carcinoma of the left breast.
Phew. I thought it was going to be really bad news.
I am joined today by Annie Parker, and in 2013, a movie came out about Annie's life, The Decoding of Annie Parker. I happened to only see it somewhat recently, and we really wanted to reach out and have a chance to talk to Annie because the movie's all about her life, and she, you lost your mom, Annie, when I think you were 14, and she died of breast cancer. Then you lost your older sister, Joan, another Joan, about 12 years later, and you really just got that notion that this can't just randomly be happening. There's got to be a link, and you were sure that you were going to get breast cancer too, and you did in 1980. But still your doctors said, it's just a string of bad luck. You didn't believe them. What made you have that conviction?
I think what happened with me, Joan, is that I reached that curve in the road, that dividing line where I thought, if I just let this be, I may never get answers that I felt in my gut were actually a connection to, and at the time, I'm not even going to use genetics right now, because back in the 60s, the word genetics was never in my vocabulary. So I just had a gut feeling, even at that young age, that there had to be a connection other than bad luck between what was happening in my family and this horrific disease known as cancer.
But where do you start? I mean, you think about that now and all the research that goes on. It's such an overwhelming undertaking. Where did you start?
I'm going to date myself by saying libraries. Who goes to the library anymore? No, social media certainly wasn't available to me. And again, just to keep my sanity, to feel that I had to prove the doctors wrong. I was 29 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And again, as you mentioned, lost my mom at 14. And I really want to say to all your listeners and viewers that, as you know, cancer, and as everybody knows, cancer doesn't just affect the cancer patient. So it wasn't just trying to find and research about cancer itself, but also to get help and assistance in how to deal with it ripping apart my family. My mom did everything back then for my family. She worked in the home. And, my dad went into the deepest of depressions. And we were from a loving family. My sister was 10 years older than I was. And she was living her life. My brother, 7 years older than me, living his life. I was the baby. And I had to try and pick up the pieces and watch my dad just spiral out of control. So it wasn't just the cancer research. It was trying to, again, knit my family back together after this horrific loss.
Did it overtake your life a bit?
Yes, I often say that cancer came into my life before I was even born, because my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer when she was pregnant with me. So, I say it came into my life before I was born, and it never left. So I have been, some say, obsessed, but certainly surrounded by cancer for a very long time.
Well, at the same time that you were doing everything you could, and way more than the average person ever would have done. I'm not going to say obsessed, but I mean, but this research that you were doing to try to figure out the meaning of this link. At the same time, over at UC Berkeley in California, in the San Francisco Bay Area, there was a geneticist, Dr. Mary Claire King. And in the movie, she's played by Helen Hunt. And she was also, I won't say obsessed, but boy, oh boy, she was dogged in her determination to figure out what that link was. She saw it, she knew it had to be there. When did you find out about what she was doing, or how did you find out?
I found out from my oncologist. So just to give you a little bit more information, is that I was diagnosed at, again, age 29 with breast cancer. It was an eureka moment for me because, again, I knew I was going to get cancer. Then 8 years later, third stage ovarian cancer. And ovarian cancer is very difficult to detect, even today. But I went through a year of grueling chemotherapy from my ovarian cancer. And it was after that that my oncologist found out about the discovery. I'm not sure how, but Dr. King was looking for people to be part of the genetic studies. And of course, I raised my hand right away and said, please take me. So at that time, they actually San Jose Tech Museum was opening, and they were doing a whole gallery around genetic testing, and they sent out a film crew to follow me around to be tested as I was doing the testing for the genetic studies. But I have to tell you, Joan, back then it was into the second year before I actually found out that I was BRCA positive. 2 years it took for me to get my results. Today it's weeks.
And I think this was even after the whole discovery came about. That had to be the most unbelievable moment for you. I mean, first of all, I wanted to ask you something, because after watching the movie, did you really write all those letters to her like it shows in the movie?
I cannot tell a lie. No. I actually had the greatest pleasure of meeting Dr. King at the Seattle Film Festival. But there were some Hollywood liberties, if you will, and that was one of them. I knew nothing about Dr. King until I got the call from my oncologist.
But did they eventually use your case at all in that research that went on?
Yes, Dr. King today kind of calls me her hero, pioneer, blade runner, blade raiser, whatever you want to, however you want to distinguish it. But she, I'm thrilled that she calls me her hero. But she's very interested in my case, especially since my third cancer, which was in 2005, which was behind my liver. So she's a scientist, so she really wants to know about what's going on in people's bodies, women's bodies, and yeah, she's become a great friend.
But back when you were being diagnosed and when you were being treated for breast cancer, nobody knew anything about this. And all the doctors, they just basically wanted to take off your breasts and throw as much chemo at you as possible. Correct. And nobody had any idea that there was any kind of a connection. What do you say? I know you speak all over the country now. What are you telling women? What is your passion now to get out to other women?
Well, I know it's not for everybody, but my passion to women and what I advocate is communication with your doctors, work with your doctors, and again today with so much social media, it's much easier to do. But take control and work with your doctors. Take control of your health. Who knows your body better than yourself? And take advantage of all the new developments that are out there. But it's a communication. Communicate. Find out, research. I mean, that's what I do. And of course, the awareness and the education, and just to tell people that cancer can be beaten. here you are, here I am, 3 cancers later, and thriving, just thriving.
Absolutely. There are so many more young women today being diagnosed with breast cancer. And of course, there's all kinds of research going on trying to figure that out as to why. I mean, unfortunately, while the mortality rates have dropped for women overall because of all the amazing treatments that we now have,
Yes.
the mortality rates for young women, some being diagnosed as young as their teens, up through 40 when they actually would start getting mammograms, those mortality rates have been on the rise. And a lot of that is because, they read mixed messages out of magazines that say, don't do breast exams, it'll raise your anxiety. Well, at least in the movie, because I can right now only go by the movie other than what I learned from you today,
Yes.
you were doing those exams and you were being vigilant.
I absolutely was, because that's all I had. That's what drove me, is the fact that I needed to do my self-examinations. I mean, yes, again, back to the word obsessive, I was, but I just felt that if I could do anything to save my life, I would do it. And if that meant doing a breast examination in the middle of a restaurant, well, so be it. I just needed to make sure that I did whatever I had to do to survive, to stay alive.
And what do you tell women out there who, I mean, obviously they have a family history. That's the obvious, that they have to be vigilant about their own breast health. But what about genetic testing? What do you tell audiences about genetic testing?
It's a personal thing again, but it is certainly something that I would recommend to anybody, any woman that feels that there is a family connection to breast cancer. It certainly would be my recommendation. And again, not an easy decision to make, but if it's going to save your life, if it's going to see you get married or have children, and I don't want to bring this story up, but I think it's a great time to do so. Look at Angelina Jolie. I mean, she has done all the due diligence. She has done what it takes to save her life. I wish I had had those options growing up. The only option I had was to listen to a surgeon or an oncologist tell me, you have to live, we have to remove your breast. To live, we have to give you a full mastectomy or a full hysterectomy, or you're not going to see your son grow up. It's just so wonderful that we can take that empowerment now, and I'm thrilled, and I would recommend genetic testing to anybody that feels that there's connection, and not just women, men too. My brother carries the BRCA1 gene mutation, so he also carries it. So it's not just exclusive to women.
So that's important for when a man has that gene and they get married. It's also important for their daughters.
Yes. My brother has 2 daughters. One actually both were tested. One came back negative, and the other one, after she was tested in one of the prominent hospitals here in Toronto, got cold feet and decided that she didn't want the test results at this point. So I did what you just did. I kind of gulped and said, but it's her decision. It's her decision. I provide all the information, and whatever they do with that information, of course, is they're doing.
Annie, what is really the big reluctance? Is it just not wanting to know your fate, not wanting to have to worry about it, or are there other things that create that reluctance as to how you might be treated by an employer, by an insurance company, by a future husband?
I think all of what you just said, Joan, is true. Also, I think there's a guilt factor. I think with my nieces, I think because my one niece came back negative, I think my other niece, oh my gosh, what if mine is a positive result? I just think there's a lot of guilt around knowing that maybe you carry the BRCA gene. What are the next steps? But social media, doctors, they have all that information now. But it is a very tough decision to decide to have a double mastectomy. Like it's not an easy, if you're still within childbearing years. Do I have it now, or do I wait 10 years? So, and I think you have to be in a really good mental place to make those kind of decisions. And obviously my one niece just felt that she wasn't at that point yet.
Is the message to younger women today, though, to know their own body like you were so vigilant about? Because you hear people say, don't do self-breast exams, it will raise your anxiety level. I don't know about you, I want to claw their eyes out when I hear that, but go ahead. How do you feel?
No, I agree. You know, as I said, I'm a big advocate for the fact that do whatever you can. If it's, again, breast examinations in the middle of a restaurant, do it. It may raise your anxiety, but nothing could raise your anxiety more, as you are well aware, of getting that diagnosis. You know, what's the worst? You know, and it's very unfortunate, and this is why I speak to so many groups, is because unfortunately I still believe that once you're diagnosed with cancer, the first thing that comes to mind, and this is in the movie, is I don't want to die, because there's still this stigma to cancer that you're not going to survive. And you and I are here to say, yes, you will, you can.
Well, that's, you know, I've actually had people on Twitter, I've had a woman say, I don't want to go get my mammogram because I don't want to lose my breasts and I don't want to lose my hair. And it's like, hello, what about your life?
What's the alternative? Yes.
And I think that there's been this stigma about cancer that makes people scared to even want to go find out and know the truth. And the fact is that today most, I forget what the percentage is, but it's in the like 90 percentile of women diagnosed with breast cancer will survive.
That's right.
It's no longer a death sentence.
No. But I do agree with you. It's very unfortunate, and I'm not sure the reason why, and I'm not a doctor, but there are a lot of young women. I mean, when I was diagnosed at 29 in 1980, I think I was the youngest patient that my oncologist had. It is a crime that we're hearing about these gals in early 20s, even late teens, having a lump and having lumpectomies, and I really, it's awful. It really is a horrible thing. Yeah.
And Annie, how is your health today?
My health is good, Joan. As far as I know, I'm very well looked after here at my hospital in Toronto. It's a day-to-day thing. That's another sad thing about this disease. Sometimes all the signs don't show until something has developed. That's the way it was with the tumor in 2005 behind my liver. It was a fluke that they found it. I'm glad that they did. You know, if there's a good thing to my story, is that all of the cancers that I've been diagnosed with have been in body parts that they can remove, have been able to remove the tumors. So that's a good side to my story. And
hey, Annie, there's a great side to your story. The fact that you beat all these cancers back at a time when it wasn't quite as beatable as it is today, and that you have shared your story with so many people and impacted the lives of so many other women.
Thank you so much, Joan. Thank you for saying so. It's such a great pleasure to meet you. Maybe one day we will meet. And
I hope so.
I would love that. Absolutely.
All right. You take care of yourself. I don't have to say to you, be vigilant. You
no,
take care of yourself.
absolutely. And you too. Enjoy your summer.